Hello there, welcome to Straight Talk Sacred Pathway. My name's Stuart Wellborn, I'm a British working class author and former therapist, and I'm joined by my regular guest, Wa-Na-Nee-Che from Turtle Island, more commonly known as America. Good
Good,
afternoon, Wa-Na-Nee-Che. In fact, was
good,
it? Yes, good
good
afternoon to you.
afternoon on this rainy day.
You've got rain as well, so have we. We've had
Yeah,
sun for
we've
ages
had
and
rain
what's
for the last
raining?
3 days. My poor dogs have been
Two
going
things.
crazy because of lightning and thunder.
I'm lucky. My dog doesn't mind. One of my cats is deaf, but the other cat hides under the bed.
Uh,
You said you got a message. Oh, by the way, viewers, we're back. We we haven't done anything, but we seem to have solved the picture issue. Listeners, obviously that won't make no difference to you. But over to you, Ananichi. You said you got a message that you wanted to say before
yeah.
I ask you any questions.
I said got all dressed up with no place to go. But anyway, I want to basically sit there and ask all the viewers. I have put it on my Facebook that people need to share these telecastings with other people and tell them to basically go through them because there's a lot of information. But the other thing is, I would like to ask them a favor to pass it on to other people because we need, and it's very important because we're running out of time to get people to take a look at the possibility of joining the human circle of life, which is really the sacred hoop. It needs to be mended, but we can't mend it until we get the numbers. And if we don't, and once you get the numbers, then things start to become a lot easier because a lot of information that is within the circle itself can be shared to those people who have that particular gift to that particular candle. And then what we do is we go full circle so that when we have something that needs to be explained or we need something that needs to be done in the form of healing, that person within the circle itself can come up with the answers to all the other people so that they can share, and therefore we go full circle. I did a ceremony one time when I was over in Scotland, and I took all the people and I put them in a circle. And then I asked one person to get into the middle. And I told people to transfer their energy from themselves into that person who sat in the middle. And then I would ask each person what they felt. And they went all the way around. And by the time they went around, I think there was 28 people altogether in the circle. They had a full story on who this guy was or who this lady was. And the lady and the guy who was sitting in the middle couldn't believe how much information that they picked up. And they actually interpreted exactly what the person was going through, what the person had to do, and basically how that person was connected. So it does work. So the more people that come, the more people will find their candle and the more information that we will get as a group.
There you go. That's a very good message. And as he says, we really do need to spread this message. We are in dark times. We can see that in the world around us. And so share these, he calls them telecasts, because he's even older than me. But I call them podcasts. Maybe somebody else calls them something different now. But share these videos or audios, depending on how you're consuming this. Are you ready to get on with some questions from me now, Wananichi?
Well, I got my cap off, so I'm letting the energy come in.
Yeah, for those that are just listening, Wananichi's, if you've ever seen the images, is usually wearing something looking very indigenous. Tonight he's got no hat and he's wearing a bright pink shirt to catch me out. Okay, last week we rushed through the topic of the star people and prophecies and things like that. What I'd like to do, spend the rest of this episode, if you would like to explain from your perspective the cosmology as you see it, from how the universe was created, how life came about, and where we're heading, and who the star people were.
Well, it's really, how would you say, I'm not going to say strange because the indigenous people long ago before even the migration left and the migration returned, that they understood a lot more than when the migration came back and changed everything. And they thought that we were basically full of BS, but now they're starting to discover that a lot of things we said are coming true. We predicted that at one point in the future, the Earth will start to turn on its axis, that it will start going more and more to the north. And that's happening. And this was actually predicted long before, probably about 1,000 years ago, that the Earth is constantly moving and that it's starting to basically switch on its axis and move, which is basically causing a lot of changes on the Earth itself. And there are stories and places upon the Earth that people try to explain, and they try to do it in a scientific way, and yet a lot of times, 90% of the time, they're wrong. But when they look at the indigenous people's interpretation, they were 100% right. We know that long ago that we have stories about the star people going back and forth and meeting with us and giving us advanced information on ecology, on basically how nature works, and giving us ways of living in harmony with all of nature. And the stories are out there, but again, a lot of people have buried these stories. And one of the reasons why these stories have been buried, when the migration came, and we were already, we predicted that at one time we were one color, but people would leave. But when they return, they will return in three different colors. And when they return, they will be very confused because they walked away from the old ways. And that it was our responsibility to reteach them. But when you look at the migration that came to Turtle Island, which is now you call United States or America, they were bent on destroying the native way of life. And when they started doing this, they lost a lot of information. When you talk about history, especially say the Spanish history, when they went down into South America, New Mexico, and Mexico, it is now Mexico now, they found that the natives were performing open heart surgery. They found that they were doing open heart or open brain surgery. And what did they do? That's the devil's work. So they took all this information and they destroyed it. So a lot of information that could have advanced us even more nowadays, they destroyed. All the philosophy, all the culture, they tried to exterminate it because the real indigenous people lives were based on the fact of harmony with nature and love. But because they could no longer control people through the philosophy and the spirituality of the indigenous people, they had to destroy it. And within 60 years, 70 years, they started to destroy the ecology of the world by cutting down trees without any idea that things were alive. They didn't want to believe that all of nature had a life force energy and that as two-leggeds, we were connected. So we had the ability to communicate with them. So a lot of times, like I said, they would look at the indigenous people and they were sitting there offering, say, tobacco to a tree. And their first concept was what? Oh, they're praying to a tree god. No, they were basically offering tobacco to the energy of that life force being and thanking them for the warmth that they give, the shade they give, everything that they give, the oxygen, they were thanking him for that. But again, religion looked at it and said, uh-oh, they're heathens. They're praying to a tree god. When people need to understand that everything has a life force energy, and if you learn to communicate them with them, they'll give them the knowledge of who they are. It's just like when we look at the tree itself, how important the tree is in giving us oxygen. But again, you have a grandfather and a grandmother tree, and they have a family within that forest, and they're responsible for teaching their knowledge to all the little plants and all the nature and the herbs and everything that grow around them. They communicate them so they can grow. But society, in their intelligence, cut the grandfathers down. So how do you sit there and transfer all this information to the other herbs, the other beings, when you're cutting down the knowledge? And we even do that in the human society. We try to basically completely annihilate the elders until the elders get to a point now that when they say, will you babysit our kids? And their answer is, hey, look, I raised my kids. I'm not raising any more. When it was responsibility of the grandfathers and grandmothers to teach the grandchildren their knowledge so that the kids, the grandchildren already had a head start in understanding where they came from, understanding the star people, and understanding that connection so that they can get the knowledge that is needed to utilize it to make the world better. They were always told by the star people that when you do something, do it so that you better the seventh generation. So every time we did something, we did it so that the seventh generation would benefit from it. And that was the teaching of the star people. But the star people, again, at first, they're finally starting to find evidence that somebody was here. Because how do you basically have evidence, say, when the star people would come down, they wouldn't stay. They would come and do their thing, and then they would leave. Then they would come back again, and then they would leave. So how are you supposed to have scientific proof that we're here when they never stayed here? They only helped develop the human being, and then they would leave. But now they're starting to find out things that shouldn't be here, like the whole situation under the pyramid, the hidden city under the pyramids. That the knowledge was there that human beings in that particular civilization had no knowledge of. They're finding tools that should not have been there because civilization at that time couldn't develop them. They had spears that they would use and they would harden them with the fire and they used wooden spears. And all of a sudden they start finding iron spears, iron tools. And so slowly everybody is starting to understand that what was told to them long ago by the indigenous people is becoming true. But society is trying to hide things by trying to convince people again evolution, but their story of evolution, not the story of the star people's evolution. So we become very confused, and that's why we go away from the real connection because, again, when I explained that how powerful the mind can be, and they try to bury the spirit. It's like that shirt I put together. It said, kill the mind, raise the spirit. Because we're too mind controlled and we're not controlled by the information that was given to us long ago by the star people. Their number one message that they had was live in harmony. And then they shared all kinds of information with them. And they're finding out now that possibly evolution did not start on this planet. They found an area in the cosmos where they believe this is where everything started. So they're kind of getting away from that evolution here on the earth and they're starting now to understand that it came from outside the Earth, which again explains the star people that brought that particular knowledge and brought that particular seed that the human being came from.
Okay, so that was all really fascinating. That's why I didn't interrupt you at all. Um, you said there's our version of what we think evolution is, and then there's the star people's evolution. Would you like to explain that evolution? How did the universe start? Did it start with a Big Bang? Because I've read Native American or Indigenous creation myths, like I've read the Cheyenne one and a couple of others, but that was years ago, so I can't remember them. So, how did the universe come into being, and how did everything evolve from there then up to and including the star people? So you've got a lot to
Okay.
cover, and I'll shut up now.
When you look at that, you have to first of all take a look again at what science says. The Big Bang theory, that all of a sudden there was a Big Bang and all of a sudden there was Earth. So again, there was nobody on the Earth when it was created. So because it was formed as a Big Bang, but it was also formed in outer space, there were certain types of creation already there. But all of a sudden, here you found a very beautiful planet that had just been created.
Well, that did take a long time, you know.
Yeah. Well,
So
like I said,
let's rewind a little bit before the
yeah.
Earth.
Okay.
Before there was the Big Bang, what was there? Are you saying there was a Big Bang then?
The Big Bang could have been actually created by almost everything, but there was things that were there before the Big Bang. You still had people out there. You had the star people that were out there. And again, when the Big Bang did occur, they transferred a lot of the energies, life force energies, onto the Earth. But there was a civilization that was out there long before the Big Bang. And like I said, they're going outside the Milky Way now, and they're actually discovering things out there that they explain that this is where life began. But how many different galaxies do you have to go to where you find out where life really began? And how did that life get transferred from there to here? So we have to take a look at something like very simple that, first of all, the Earth and the planets and the atmosphere, the galaxy was created. Now, there are galaxies out there that have been destroyed simply because of the black hole. Stars have gone in there and they've exploded. So, why can't people say that maybe one of the explosions that happened within the black hole didn't escape, and then you had the Big Bang Theory? I just lost you on your sound.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I was just saying that is one of the scientific theories in physics that the Big Bang is from a black hole. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm I'm wanting to avoid the science bit for a moment and just go on the story of from your side of it of where the star people came from and
Well, if you look at
where they are now.
yeah,
I mean, are they material? You know,
they're coming back.
are they solid objects like us, or are they on an energy level or different plane of existence? What?
Well, the way the energies, I had a friend that basically had no spiritual connection whatsoever. But he had his first vision, and he was sitting there one day, and I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Something happened last night." What? He said, "The spaceship came, and the people in the spaceship were dark, but the queen, they had a queen who was really human looking like, and she said, 'I want you to give a message to Wa-Na-Nee-Che.' She said, 'Tell him we're coming. Tell them we're pissed off because of what they done to the indigenous people and how they violated the rules that we gave them. And we are not happy with them. They said so that if they don't turn, then Judgment Day is going to be coming. But this is somebody that was not even connected spiritually or nothing. He just had it, but he was told to give that message to me. So sometimes we have to realize that people can be utilized to give you a message because they have no understanding and there's no ream or rhyme why they would get something like that. So again, there's proof that the star people do exist and that they're out there and they're watching us. It's just like, how can people believe that the earth was created in 6 days? And then they pick Sunday to go worship God. And the whole fact is, God's not there. He's resting on the seventh day. So when you sit there and the stories, if you really look at them, a lot of people will take, like Christianity will take it word for word. Adam and Eve were created. They had Cain and Abel. So they went out and populated the earth. Where were the women?
Exactly. That's another one. So I'm like,
You know,
what?
and the whole
Did
idea
Eve do it
is,
all?
and then they say that upon this upon this rock you will build my church. Well, if you're going to build upon the church, upon the rock, isn't it the earth? So rather than creating physical things, you know, and they didn't understand that if you followed the message given to all people about love, harmony, then it makes it really simple that the earth is your is a place that you worship. That's the place where you offer. That's the place that you talk because wherever you go on the earth, if you don't want to think about it, you're in church.
I agree, but you've strayed off topic a little bit there.
Yeah.
Where are the star people from? What are they made of? Are they like physical aliens? That's why I was asking. Where
Well,
did they come from? What
if,
do they want?
okay, let's take energy.
Right.
Energy can do what? It can take any shape and form it wants.
Mm-hmm.
So the star people came from energy, and they decided to put themselves in a physical form. So then they became the star people in a physical form. But before that, they were energy. Energy does not die. Energy is forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I talk to them sometimes, I said, you look at here on Earth, we have a time limit. I said, where you're at, you don't. And so you say, and you talk to them and you ask for things, and they'll say, we'll get to it tomorrow. Well, tomorrow may be 1,000 years in their years, and we're 100 years in ours, and we're gone before the answer gets to us. So when we look at the star people, the way that I understood it, the way the answer just came to me, was that they used to be energy. They
But
were
now
life
they're
force
physical.
energies, and that's why when we come, before we come into this world, we are life force energies that come in the form of sperm. And once we're in a fertile area, we develop. And when we're a fetus, we're both man and woman. We're both a boy and a girl. And before we start to mature as a fetus, we decide whether or not we're going to be a boy or we're going to be a girl. But then sometimes there's confusion. So they come out both. And a lot of people right now are criticizing a lot of people who come out this way. And yet they say, who made you? God made me. Well, then God made these people too. So you need
Exactly.
to respect all life
Well
because
said.
who are you to condemn them? You're not God. You are simply human beings that are supposed to accept things the way they are. and don't try to change. That's why we have wars, because people want to change other people to their belief system.
Well, there's greed involved in war as well,
Yeah.
isn't there? Back to the star people again, then. So they were energy. They are now. They can assume physical. Is that what the grey aliens are that we see on the TV, or is that just made up stuff?
Well, look at when you look at energy again, energy can take any shape and form it wants. So wouldn't it be feasible to understand that they could take other forms too?
Oh, I get that, but I'm just saying, are the grey aliens that we see on the conspiracy TV shows, are they just made up, or are they actually the star people?
Well, the star people aren't gray.
They aren't grey.
But again, the human ego plays a lot in saying, we found this, we found that, when in reality they didn't. So a lot of times they can actually invent material to make you believe certain something. And I always tell people, you know, it's like Star Wars. Use the Force. Go to the source. Ask the question, are these real? And if you ask correctly, you'll go to sleep and all of a sudden, maybe not that night, but maybe 4 days later, or maybe a week later, all of a sudden you get an answer. But if it's not your time to get that answer, you're not going to get it. Or if it's not meant for you, you're not going to get it. So people have to understand if you don't get something that you ask for, do the ceremony again and ask in a different way. And if it doesn't come after that, forget it because it's not for you.
Sound advice again, Wa-Na-Nee-Che. Once again, going off topic. So, you answered me and then went off on a topic of your own, but we've covered what the star people are. Um, what do they want with Earth, shall we say?
They want Earth to become back to harmony. They want to basically, again, get people to understand there's a way of life that they gave us, and we need to start practicing it. Take a look, tell people take a look at the prophecy of the Hopis, the four worlds, where the first world was developed and they brought humans to the planet and they gave them strict rules to follow, but they went against them. Greed took over. So the first world was destroyed. The second world came with a different energy. They were given again the responsibility to live in harmony and they were given certain gifts. Again, they went away from the teachings that were given to them. They went to a third world. The same thing happened there. We're now in the fourth world, and when the fifth world comes, they say there will be a cleansing. And only those people who still follow the pathway of the old ways, which is the sacred hoop, will be allowed to come back to the earth.
And what will that involve? You
Now,
know,
people have to understand that,
are you on
again,
about a spaceship? Or are we talking about coming back in a different body,
well,
turning
I
to a
believe,
different
no, they'll
form of
come back the
energy?
same way, but they'll have a new understanding, and this time they will keep the rules and regulations that were given to them by the star people. And that people, even though the sacred hoop is very, very important, if they look and they allow their heart to become the number one guidance to their life, they are automatically part of the hoop. And that's what people have to realize that remember, and even in the Bible, they say the children shall inherit the earth. Well, doesn't that mean when children are there, do they have any hatred? Do they have any racism? Do they have anything? No, they're pure. So, yeah, so that what it means is that human beings have to become childlike again.
I don't know if I'm right in this, but I think it's said the meek shall inherit the earth, isn't it? Not that I'm knocking what you said for your answer, because I work with children, and there's something different with children. They've got none of the baggage that grown-ups have they?
That's right.
They see things as they are, no judgment. Very
Yeah.
good.
And they simply teach us, how many times do you see children of different colored skins playing together?
Every week, because that's my job.
And there's no prejudice, there's no nothing. And remember, one of the stories, one of the predictions was that the lion will lie down next to the sheep. And what's happening? A lot of nature stories are coming out where animals, like say a gazelle, a baby gazelle, a female lion will come out. Well, generally the female lion will kill the gazelle,
Hmm.
but instead it mothers it. So you're starting to get a lot of stories coming out of things being done by animals that they shouldn't, that they're out of character according to the way we interpret it.
Wow. That's a great note to end on. We're going to wrap up now. As Wa-Na-Nee-Che says, if you've got any questions, send them in. And also do share his message if you believe in it. If you want to be part of the sacred hoop, even if you don't want to join any pages or anything like that, just share this message.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the Straight Talk Sacred Pathway podcast. I hope you'll come back for our next episode next week. And if you've got any questions you'd like me to put to Wa-Na-Nee-Che, you can email me at stuart@realityresponsibility.com. Details should be in the description where you're listening to this podcast.